Hello, everybody. It is Sunday in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My name is Adam Bittner, Assistant Sports Editor for Multimedia at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, joined by Paul Zeise, our Post-Gazette sports columnist, after an 18-10 Steelers victory here on Week 1 in Atlanta. Big victory, Paul. Didn't look always pretty at times. Didn't look pretty, I think, a lot of the time, especially offensively. But really a dominant day from the defense. Let me get your big picture reactions here before we dig into the nuts and bolts of this game. What you saw from the Steelers today, good and bad.
Nothing I saw was very surprising. That's for sure. Justin Fields did kind of what I thought he would do. The Steelers were able to sort of dictate what they wanted to do on offense because their defense played really well. And, of course, I anticipated that their defense would dominate Kirk Cousins and the Falcons. As an aside, is that looking like maybe the worst contract ever handed to anybody in the history of the NFL? I mean, the guy can't move. He can't really get out of anybody's way. It doesn't even look like he's 100% healthy. I have a feeling that the Falcons are going to be the Steelers of last year, where the defense their defense is really good, but boy, that offense, even with all those weapons, is really difficult to watch. But the Steelers, because of that, and because their defense they were able to dictate the game with their defense, they never had to put Justin Fields in any bad situations. They never had the ball, you know what I mean, in a situation where he had to start making plays. Made was something that was schemed. It was schemed like to throw to Pickens down the field right before the half. And, every play, they didn't have to ever rely on him making a play other than a couple with his legs. And if they can do that, they've got a chance to win a lot of games, because I think if you don't give this defense a short field to work with, teams are going to have a really hard time driving the field and scoring. So, by not turning it over, and really, let's face it, that's the difference in the game today. Turnovers. Cousins turned it over twice, and essentially a third time with the fumble that the guy running across pre-snap and Watt got the fumble there. That's the difference in the game when you're trying to play real close to the vest, real tight, real conservative. That's the difference in the game is turnovers. And frankly, I see what it was there. So if the Steelers can continue to keep Justin Fields out of harm's way and not have to ask him to do too much, I don't know, Adam. This defense is really good. I think they've got a shot to, win some games this way. Now, can they beat Kansas City playing that way? Probably not. Buffalo, last I looked, I know that they were in a dogfight, but still, Buffalo has like 35 points on the board today. I don't know if you can win that. You know what I mean? Houston, any of these teams that have really good quarterbacks, I don't know if you can beat those teams playing that way. But it's a formula that will work, that will get them to 9 or 10 wins. So once you do that, you steal a game here or there. Now you're at 10, 11 wins. You know what I mean? I just think that they're playing to their strengths and the way that they have to play. And the hope is that every week Justin Fields gets a little bit better if he plays. I will say this, Adam. I don't think they win this game if Russell Wilson plays, honestly, because Justin Fields did enough with his legs, to keep the thing, I think Russell Wilson would have thrown at least one up for grabs.
Yeah, I had that written down in my show notes, Paul. I was going to get into that topic, so I guess we can get into it now. Let me just thank our sponsor here up at the top of the show first, Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. There's no better place to get new windows and doors installed in your home than Pella, who can help you save on energy costs year-round. Schedule a free in-home consultation with your local Pella Windows and Doors to find the right product for your home and budget. Give them a call at 866-593-1560 to discuss your project further. That's 866-593-1560 to get started planning on your new windows and doors installations with Pella Windows and Doors of Pittsburgh. Paul, let's get into that question a little more, because I had a similar thought watching Justin Fields make kind of simple third down conversions. They weren't huge plays. It wasn't, a flashy throw down the field. It was 3rd and 2 when he picks up 4. It was, rolling out on some of these plays, hitting. I think there was a couple bootlegs to the tight ends there late in the game. It was on that drive that they got stopped on the fourth down. It seemed like the same play twice where he rolled, and it was just very fluid, very natural. Is that part of why we didn't see Russell Wilson? Because this offense requires him to make those plays and be using his feet to make those plays, or was this stuff that only Justin Fields can do at this stage of Russell Wilson's career?
Well, I mean, I think that at this stage in Russell Wilson's career, I don't know that he can do some of those things. Some of the short yardage runs, the design runs, some of even the rollouts, that they made with Justin Fields. I don't know that Russell Wilson could have done that. Now, we could sit here and say, well, if you have Russell Wilson in there, he stands in the pocket and, he's able to make plays. But I didn't see a whole lot of really that would make me think that the offensive line is ready for a pocket passer. I think that one of the keys to this game was a lot of what they did was schemed and rolling him out and running right at running right downhill and running Justin Fields. That kind of stuff, I think this offensive line is equipped to do. What I don't know if they're equipped to do is when you have a passer like Russell Wilson, who's probably going to be a drop back guy for the most part, can you protect him enough? A guy that can't get out of his own way. I mean, he's not Kirk Cousins level immobility, but he's not going to be that mobile, I don't think. So I kind of feel like this game, I'll put it this way, Adam, this game actually changed my mind. I think Justin Fields should be the starter next week, even if Russell Wilson is healthy. I actually think with the Steelers defense and the way they want to play offense, Justin Fields actually is a better fit and gives them a better chance and gives them a chance to be in the game. I could be wrong, but you hope that as they develop the run game and the offensive line feels better and settles in, you hope that, okay, he gets a little better throwing the ball. I don't know. What do you think?
I think he set the bar pretty high today, Paul, for, what people's tolerance of Russell Wilson is going to be. I still think Russell Wilson's going to have the job, when he's healthy enough to come back. I think the Steelers are going to want to see what he can do, just given his veteran pedigree. And when you get into some of those tougher games, I can see why they want Russell Wilson to be the guy. But Justin Fields set the bar at a level of competence that if Russell Wilson doesn't hit that, people are now going to be screaming for Justin Fields. Whereas if you start with Russell Wilson, you hadn't seen this game today, I think it's a different, conversation if and when Russell Wilson struggles. So, I don't know if I'm ready to say I want to see Justin Fields, but I think that the tolerance of any issues with Russell Wilson, if and when he gets the job back, is going to be much lower because now you've seen what Justin Fields can do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I agree with you. I think when Russell Wilson's healthy, they'll probably put him in. But for me, I'm telling you, I really think that they should think long and hard about just committing to Justin Fields and letting him play because of the way they want to play offense and because of how they're built and the way their defense is built. To me, you add Justin Fields as another running threat and you continue to scheme plays that he can make in the passing game. I think it's a better formula because I just feel like Russell Wilson, unless again I'm wrong and Russell Wilson is able to throw the ball over the field like he used to, but and I'm sure we're going to get into this, but it looks to me like the Steelers have one legitimate weapon out of the backfield. And so I'm talking about in the passing game. I mean, Freiermuth is Freiermuth, but there's one guy that scares defenses. And I didn't see anything today that changes my mind that some of these other guys can help. So running the ball, running it with power, running it, from your quarterback run, running it, that to me is something that you should really think about trying to build on and continue to build on,
Yeah, the pieces looked complimentary to me, Paul. And I think that's kind of what you're getting at is that the Fields worked off the offensive line well, and he just seemed to have what you needed in the right situations. There's a lot of people in the chat talking about the explosiveness. I want to get to this. Did we see what the lack of a number 2 receiver looks like in this offense? Because we've been talking all summer about Brandon Ayuk, bring in a number 2. They don't have enough. And then I think you saw today there is a lack of explosiveness that I don't know if you can pin just on the quarterback. I think it was a matter of guys were not available to make those plays down the field. It wasn't just a matter of, Arthur Smith wasn't putting, Justin Fields in any situations to make those plays. You saw it with the deep bomb to Pickens. There was a couple when Pickens was open, they found him and they made plays today. There just weren't enough of those guys out there. Justin Fields ends up throwing the ball 23 times. You need a number 2 receiver when you're going to throw the ball 23 times, right. I think, Paul.
Right.
And I think you saw that today is that, even when there's good things kind of under the surface, you're not going to go on 15 play touchdown drives all the time. You're going to need to get chunks to make that consistency really work for you and finish off drives.
Right. The only other 2 receivers besides Pickens that caught a pass are Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson. And they combined for 2 catches for 8 yards.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the targets here, Paul. You had 2 targets to Calvin Austin and 2 to Van Jefferson. So that's a total of 4 times you targeted any receiver that's not George Pickens. Of course, Freiermuth was involved there. I think Michael Pruitt, the other tight end, was involved. But just as a matter of making plays down the field, I don't think you can do what they tried to do today consistently. I think you saw that's what my big takeaway was the lack of another option. And I'm not talking about 80-yard touchdowns. I'm talking about a 20-yard pass, Paul.
Right. Well, again, to put it into perspective, Jaylen Warren had 2 receptions for 13 yards. Austin and Van Jefferson combined 2 receptions for 8 yards. And the one to Jefferson was maybe the worst play of the game, where he should have got a first down and somehow got tackled before. It was like 3rd and 2. Do you remember that play?
Yeah.
3rd and 2. They threw a swing pass to him or whatever you want to call that, and he couldn't get straight upfield. I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at that and I'm saying, I keep hearing about Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin and how great they were in training camp, but to me, they're Van Jefferson and Calvin Austin. So, that is the problem. And I think, to your point, it might not show up even next week against Denver, because Denver's offense is going to be terrible and their quarterback is terrible. But when you start to get against the better teams, even as good as your defense is, they're going to give up points. You got to figure out how to score, and that's the thing. I guess it really won't matter. Maybe the 3rd week against the Chargers, although I'm not sure how good their offense is going to be. They're going to be on TV here soon. But they do have a good quarterback. But to me, if you're going to keep up with the teams that are at the top of the AFC, you're going to have to be able to make plays in the passing game. You're going to have to be able to score points. You're going to have to be able to, make big chunk plays and all that other stuff. And I just am not sure this team is going to be capable of doing that, to be honest.
Yeah. I think there were. I'll say this in comparison to last year, Paul, when there were times that things just looked completely hopeless. I never got to that point with this offense today where I said, "Oh man, this is other than maybe the first couple of drives where they had all the snap issues and things were discombobulated. The communication seemed bad. That was concerning. But then I think once they settled into the game, everything looked coherent to me. So I think that's the source of hope, is that do you at least feel like they're starting from a better place here compared to where they've been in years past, where you've got some kind of foundation on the home and it's a matter of building on it and finishing drives, as opposed to at times not having anything working at all?
Well, I think because of the quarterback's ability to run the ball, it adds another dimension. But Adam, and this is where it always drives me crazy, how selective we are about certain things. Is this really any different than what we saw the last couple of years? I mean, maybe I think the quarterback's better than what they've had. But this is a team that is legitimately going to try and win games like this every week. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I hear you, Paul. I just did not. There were times in the last couple of years where things felt completely hopeless, and I don't know that I kind of felt that way today. And I think the bar is very low. I will acknowledge that the bar is very low, but at least they seem to clear that in this first test here. Of like, well, you don't feel like they're completely cooked if they fall behind, a score like they did in the middle of this game. They were still able to run their stuff, and I never felt the panic that they just can't keep up with the team.
Well, I think one of the things about that, though, if you remember, they got down 10-6, and they made that big play to get a field goal right before half to make it 10-9. So they were attached pretty much the entire game. All I'm saying is 2 of their field goals were 55 yards plus. You know what I'm saying? Which means they didn't exactly penetrate down into the enemy territory, and if they didn't have as reliable of a kicker they had, I mean, they very literally could have won this game 12-10.
And if you're not indoors, I mean, I think that was a big plus that you don't get. I mean, you're not going to get in November at Acrisure Stadium.
So my point is, I know what you're saying. It feels like it's better, but on the surface, is it better? You know what I'm saying? We just have to wait and see how it plays out. That's the biggest thing I would tell you. Wait to see how it plays out before we decide whether or not it's better.
Hey, better having that discussion after you've won than after you've lost. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. There were the snap issues early in the game, but I thought they came together pretty well. I mean, like you said, could they protect a pocket passer? Did we get to see a whole lot of that today? I think there's still more to prove, but I think there was a state of panic that people have been in for the last couple of weeks with this group and all the flux with the injuries and all the young guys that are coming in there. I think all things considered, Paul, it was a very competent effort considering the youth of the guys that the Steelers had out there. And again, I think it's, what I was just saying maybe about the offense as a whole, I would say about the offensive line is I think you're starting from a pretty good place here. Doesn't mean there aren't flaws, doesn't mean you don't have to get better, but considering the youth of this group, I thought it was a nice maiden voyage for them.
No question. I thought they played well. The Justin Fields, he gets sacked. He got maybe once or twice, but for the most part, he had time to throw it, right? I mean, he looked pretty good in the pocket. They were able to run the ball a little bit with a little bit of success. And so, I mean, Najee Harris, 20 carries, 70 yards. I mean, he's not going to the Hall of Fame doing that, but I felt like he had effective runs. They averaged 3.3 yards per carry. Obviously not nearly as good as, or not nearly what you want it to be. I mean, it was a reasonably good, conservative game plan. And the only way you can do that is if your offensive line gives you enough blocking, run game, and keeping your quarterback clean so that you can actually move the ball a little bit and also not turn the ball over, right? You don't want to throw it up for grabs. And you don't want your quarterback getting hit and strip sacks and all that stuff. I mean, quite frankly,
that's what for all the talk about Atlanta's offensive line on the broadcast and how good they are. They didn't do that today, Paul. And I think that was a nice kind of juxtaposition of like that's kind of where the Falcons lost the game, and the Steelers, kept their crap together, for lack of a better term.
I mean, I tell you, the Steelers. Here it is. Wait, let me look right. Yeah, the Steelers were a little bit lucky, and here's when they were a little bit lucky. Could have been a completely different game. Atlanta gets the ball. They drive. They're driving. They're up 10-9. They drive to the. They're up 10-9. They drive to the 32-yard line where they have 1st and 10, and they have that stupid play where the motion guy comes through. You know what I mean? And the ball hits him, and it's a fumble, and Watt recovers it. And the reason I say that is because they were in field goal range there, but they were moving the ball. They had a little rhythm there. If they go down and score a touchdown and it's 17-9, it's probably a completely different game. And then the Steelers would have to do some different things on offense. So, they were a little bit fortunate with that. But my point is, what the Steelers did is what the Atlanta Falcons did not do. The
Right.
Steelers did not beat themselves. They did not make mistakes like that. They did not make critical errors. They didn't turn the ball over. Justin Fields didn't put the ball in harm's way. Truth be told, if it's not for penalties, T.J. Watt would have had two more strip sacks. It would have been like 6 turnovers for Atlanta. So to me, I think that's the thing you have to focus on when you're talking about the offense, is they've done a good job today of not turning the ball over, not putting their defense in a bad place, letting their defense win the game. That's a formula until they figure some things out on offense. And I think the only way you can do that is if your offensive line is giving you a little bit of a push, opening up just enough holes that, that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, and avoiding disaster. And I think that was, that was the bar for a group that included Spencer Anderson today too, Paul. I mean, a guy that you have not seen much in these lineups. They met that bar. So I think it was a all-around pretty good day for the offensive line. Again, they got to be better for explosiveness down the field, but I think that'll do for now. Paul, let's talk about a couple of huge calls that influenced this game before we get to the defense a little bit. You had the OPI on George Pickens in the first half. Then you have the offsides call on TJ Watt that nullified the strip sack that you just referenced. And then late in the game, you had the no call on running into Cameron Johnston, the punter, that gave Atlanta a chance to they would have been in really good shape for a nice drive there to win the game if it was not for the interception by Kirk Cousins. So what did you think of those 3 calls? Because we've had some comments about the refs so far in the chat.
Yeah, I mean, again, I thought the referees were horrific. I thought they were bad. And I thought that they looked like a refereeing crew doing their first game of the season and not caught up to necessarily the speed of the game, not getting to where they need to get to. They have the right angles and all that other stuff. I think that's important. I mean, to get refereeing right. And there were so many bad calls and weird calls and different places. The worst call I think of the entire game was George Pickens. When he caught the ball, fell down and jumped back up, and they called him down at the spot of the foul. You know what I'm talking about on that play?
Yeah, they said that he was down by contact.
Contact. There was nobody near him.
There was another call. I think it was the Ray McLeod play, Paul, where I didn't think he got touched either when he went down, and I was surprised he didn't get up and keep running. Maybe they got his helmet a little bit, but I didn't see contact on that play either, and that was called down by contact.
Yeah. So to me, I mean, I think that it was a bad game overall. The TJ Watt call offsides was really, really close. I know people were, wow, that's the worst call they've ever seen and all this other stuff. I mean, that's a bang, bang play. I could live with that, But to me, there was a number of other calls that were just not very good.
Yeah, rough day for the refs, but it is the first game for them too. So we'll see how that goes over the course of the season. One other thing I wanted to say on offense, Paul, before we get to the defense. Najee Harris looked meaner to me today. It just seemed to be playing with a little bit of a different demeanor, getting in people's faces, playing with a little more swagger. Anecdotal, but and it ended up being what do we have here? 19 carries, 71 yards, 3.7 yards per carry. Not terribly efficient, but a little bit of a Jerome Bettis type effort from him today. What did you think of the way Najee Harris played, with all of the conversation that's been around him as a focal point of this offense?
I thought he, ran hard. I was surprised that he didn't have more yardage than he did. I thought he ran pretty hard. And I thought that he did some good things after contact, where he got a couple legs. But the thing about him, he just doesn't make anybody miss, ever, I mean, he trucks guys a little bit here and there, but in terms of when he gets into open field, first guy that gets to him is usually going to, get him down. He doesn't really make guys miss, and so that's probably why he doesn't have all of that. You know what I'm saying? That's probably why he doesn't have as many yards and everything else, because he doesn't get a whole lot on his own. I like the way he ran today, though. He ran hard, and he ran with a purpose, and that's always a good thing.
Do you make anything of Cordero Patterson out touching Jaylen Warren 4-2? Obviously, Jaylen Warren's been dealing with some injury concerns here in the preseason, but he was in uniform today, and you have to assume he's some level of healthy, and still Cordero Patterson gets more touches compared to where we were at the end of the last season, where it was almost becoming like a 50-50 split between Warren and Harris.
Well, no, I would tell you, I was surprised that Jaylen Warren actually played. It seemed like the tea leaves were he wasn't going to be able to play. So when he did, I was surprised. I thought, wow, he's not going to get that many touches, but he did, and he got his ability to play a little bit, far more than I thought.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things go with him in the weeks ahead. Paul, what about that fourth down call down near the goal line? I think they were the 5 or 6 yard line. And they decided to go for it on fourth down. They did not seem to have the play communicated in very well, and Justin Fields gets stuffed. I don't know why listen, I get what the analytics say about going for it and your chances of converting. And if you get a touchdown down that drive, the game is effectively over. But hitting the 3 to go up 8 is not an insignificant thing to pass up to me, Paul, because then this Atlanta Falcons offense with Kirk Cousins playing the way he was, not only has to drive the field and score once, they got to add the 2-point conversion just to tie the game, as opposed to you very quickly ended up in a situation where they had the ball in decent field position with a chance to go win the game. I thought that was a bad call, Paul, especially if they didn't have their ducks in a row.
Yeah, that was an interesting one for me because my gut said go for it, go get the first down. By the same token, if you get the first down there, you still are 12, 15 yards away from the end zone, and you can waste another minute or two, but it might turn out that, 3 plays later, you end up kicking the field goal anyway. And so, thinking about it now, I actually think that probably they should have kicked the field goal, not because they didn't make it, but because the play call was such that they were going to get the first down by an inch if they got it, you know what I mean, or by a yard. They still would have had 15 yards to score. Now, that being said, that tells you everything you need to know about how much Mike Tomlin trusts that defense and trusted the fact that that defense was not going to give up big play to Kirk Cousins. Because let's face it, the way that the game played out, it became really clear to me at some point that Atlanta's offense was not going to get a big play. They couldn't protect Kirk Cousins. I don't even know how far he can throw it anymore. The one big play down the middle they had to Ray McLeod was a little bit of a fluke.
Yeah, the ball came off his hand and it's still converting.
So it became clear that if they were going to score, they're going to have to go, 4 yards at a time. And as you saw, that's just really hard to do against the Steelers. Invariably a 15-play drive, there's going to be a play that you make a mistake. And there's going to be a play that maybe puts you in negative yardage or behind the sticks. And then what? And I think that's the most important thing to me is it was one of those things where I think Mike Tomlin just said, I trust my defense. I don't think this team can go 85 yards against me. So even if we don't, get the first down, we're going to get the ball back. So that's just my thoughts. I agree with you. I probably would have liked to see them kick the field goal, but I had no problem with them going for it either.
Yeah, I can see that argument too. Let's get to the defense before we do. Just want to thank another sponsor. It's Goldberg, Persky & White. If you were diagnosed with mesothelioma or lung cancer, call your local attorneys at Goldberg, Persky & White. For over 40 years, our firm has represented thousands of lung cancer and mesothelioma victims. Call 1-800-COMPLEX or visit gpwlaw.com for a free consultation. Pretty great day for not just the defense, Paul, but some of these offseason acquisitions. You get a pick from Deshaun Elliott, a guy that I don't think has gotten quite enough hype as a signing, especially if you haven't been paying attention through this whole offseason process. I think a lot of eyes around Steelers Nation, but it might have been opened to him today. Then you get the interception late from Donte Jackson. Obviously TJ Watt plays at a dominant level, but that is almost what you come to expect. I want to get your reaction from, how some of those new guys played and made, not just decent plays, but game-changing plays.
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought the one guy we didn't hear a whole lot from was Patrick Queen. I don't remember, right? I mean, he didn't really make many plays. But I did think that Donte Jackson showed up on a couple of plays. You know what I mean? I think that there were so I actually kind of like what I saw from him. I mean, my thoughts on him were basically that he's a speedster, but he's not really good in coverage. But I don't know. I mean, he looked to me like he was a guy that is actually a reasonably good corner. So, I mean, obviously they made some additions there. The other guy that made a few plays, and I don't think any of us are shocked, is that Peyton Wilson kid. I mean, rookie, made a couple of big plays, made a big play to stop, on third down. Had another tackle on the sideline. I thought he did really well. He's somebody that you feel good about. As you said, Deshaun Elliott, he had 4 tackles. So, all in all, and I'll tell you the other guy, he's not a new guy, Adam, but he's an important guy. How about, Cam Hayward looked pretty good today. And he's the guy that we have a lot of concerns about his injury and his new contract and all that stuff. I don't know. He looked to me like he was pretty good today. What about you?
Yeah, I noticed Cam Hayward especially kind of seemed to get, I think with that whole defensive line, they really started to dominating late and kind of getting a nice push. And so I think he was a huge part of that. The question is going to be, can he keep doing this over, the schedule? Can he avoid injuries at this stage of his career? And on any one game, do I think he can still do this? Absolutely. He's just going to have to prove it over the sample size for, I think, people to feel good about that contract. You mentioned Peyton Wilson. He actually out-tackled Patrick Queen 3-2. I think he had the 3 tackles in the first half, and then I don't think he was as visible in the second half, but still a nice outing for him. And it's very clear to me, Paul, that other than Zach Frazier, who kind of got the center job by default with what happened with Nate Herbig, that Peyton Wilson maybe is the guy who, of the rookie class, has most earned being on the field in the preseason.
Yes. And he's the guy that we talked about a lot, Adam, Peyton Wilson, haven't we? I mean, he's the guy we've talked about a lot, that he fits what they're looking for, that he plays at a level where he's a football junkie and he makes plays. There's a lot that you'll have to like about him. And we thought, and, he might be a guy that'd be a candidate for the Steelers Rookie of the Year. And so far, I would assume that he probably has the inside track on it after one game. That doesn't mean much. I mean, Roman Wilson is hurt. Fautanu didn't play. So, but yeah, he's what we thought he was. And I think he'll get better and better and better. A kid that just makes plays. And he's a big hitter. He makes plays. One of the things we probably should talk about is I just saw, for people that think that I might be looking here and not paying attention, I have my other laptop set up right here so I can look at the stats and also kind of check in on Twitter to make sure that, and Cameron Johnston apparently has a major injury, according to Jerry Dulac. He said, as Mike Tomlin just said, that Cameron Johnston has a major injury. So Presley Harvin the third time, baby, right?
Give him a buzz. He's coming back. I thought that was one of the better moves. And then you had what, 6 scoring drives today? You didn't get a lot of work, even though it still ended in a kick with Boswell, but I think that's going to be something we didn't end up. We're going to be talking about the punting as much today as we might some of the other days this season. But there was a lot of good feeling around him. He looked good in the preseason. If you didn't watch the preseason games, so that could be a major development. Paul, I wanted to ask you about Minka Fitzpatrick here toward the end of the show. He ends up leading the team in tackles with 7 today. He seemed to be all over the field. I think about that one. That was the run, Bijan Robinson run, where he, came up from they were showing 2 safeties. He comes up and makes the play, hits the gap and made a huge play. He seemed to be playing more like the Minka Fitzpatrick that we came to know earlier in his career in Pittsburgh, before the middle linebacker play was so deteriorated that he was almost basically forced to play and run support all the time. Is this the type of game that makes you feel good about his ability to be more that playmaking type of safety that we've seen him be in the past?
that's one of the best games I've seen him play. I thought he was exactly what you want him to be. Now, again, I think it made it easier that you had Kirk Cousins, and it was pretty clear the Steelers' defense started crunching up a little bit, right? They started crunching up, and they started sniffing blood. So they didn't, they have to worry about getting beat over the top, a little bit. And that really sets up well for Minka Fitzpatrick. If you're the Steelers and you can get the field where it looks like this, and the offense is on this side and it's tilting that way, Minka Fitzpatrick becomes a completely different player. So I actually think, he played extremely well. He played the way that, they need him to play. And as the game went on and they were able to dictate more and more what they were going to do with him, I thought that was a pretty good indicator of what he can be in this offense in this defense, if they can keep these games at the level that they're at.
Big picture, Paul. Baltimore loses. I just saw in the chat that Cincinnati has now lost. So the Steelers are alone in first place for the moment. We'll see what the Browns do, but it's possible you could have a game lead on the entire division. You get a road win today. You're going into Denver. We've talked a lot about how important it's been for this team to get off to a good start, Paul. How significant is this win, securing it and getting some good vibes going, building a little bit of momentum while the other teams in your division are struggling, and with the teeth of your schedule coming so late? I think this, big picture, you never want to overreact to the first game, but this one was really important to get.
No question. No question. It's important on so many levels, right? Important on so many levels that you have to try and win all of these games early on, and this is an ugly, nonsensically bad in many ways, boring in many ways football game, against a team that I'm not sure what they're going to be at the end of the year, probably somewhere around 9-8. I'm talking about the Falcons, but you're on the road. You have a lot of tough games in the second half of the season. You have to win this one. This is the game you have to win, for sure. And they did.
Yeah, so I think that's...
Especially since you go on the road next week. So if you lose next week in Denver, I don't think it's as significant as if they lost today, facing, going on the road to a place that's hard to play, facing the prospects of going 0-2. Now I think there's a little less pressure to have to win in Denver.
Any final thoughts, Paul? I don't know if you want to give your thoughts on the quarterback situation again, because we got a lot of people join us late in the show here. But any final thoughts as we go into the week ahead about, how things, might play out at the quarterback spot?
Well, if Russell Wilson's healthy, they'll probably put him in and make him the starter. But as we said at the start of the show, or at least I did, I would probably go with Justin Fields again, because I think of the way this team is playing and the way they want to play and the way that they're trying to play offense. I think he fits what they're looking for. And if they can, grind out stuff on offense and not put their offense in bad position, or the defense in bad positions, they have a chance to win. And I thought Justin Fields did that great today. His ability to run, help them get a couple of first downs, extend some drives, his ability to scramble out, kept them defense off balance a little bit. There's a lot of things about that, that you really like. To me, the way they're playing, the way they want to play offense and the way their defense is capable of playing, I think you just go with him.
It almost feels, the more I'm sitting here thinking about it, Paul, like I kind of remember the Penguins playoff run in 20, was it 16 or 17? When Matt Murray gets hurt and you stick Fleury in and then you end up riding with him for a couple of playoff series. I'm almost sitting here wondering, should it be Justin Fields' job until he does not get the job done? And then if you want to take your chances with Russ, then you do it there. But as long as you're winning, doesn't he just give you more upside, as a franchise and more options moving forward than Russell Wilson does? And
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There's no question about that. So, yes, when I say that, yes, you absolutely need to go and think about that. And I would, at least. That's just me. I would absolutely think about that. The upside, the fact that it could get better, the fact that he probably has more at his disposal in terms of game breaking ability, or at least with his ability to run. Yeah, I think that's what I agree with.
Yeah. So you're kind of persuading me. Let's see where we end up on Thursday when we do our normal weekly show. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Nice first audience of the season. It was great to talk. I think there was a lot to talk about. So let's continue the conversation on Thursday. That's Paul and I's show. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. We'll have a lot more Steelers content. We're going to have the guys, Ray Fittipaldo, Brian Bacco, Jerry Dulac, coming to you from Mercedes-Benz Stadium later on this evening. North Shore Drive with Christopher Carter Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Chip Tammon football with Brian Bacco. He'll have a nice guest on Tuesday. And then, of course, Paul and I will be here Thursday. And then after next week's game at Denver for another live stream. Subscribe and make sure you like this video if you enjoyed it. Help us out with the YouTube algorithm. And otherwise, we will talk to you all again next week. Thanks, Paul.
All right, we'll see you.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.